Entrepreneurship, wisdom to wealth. Welcome to Entrepreneurship, Wisdom to Wealth. I'm Regina Davis, your host. Welcome to Season 2.
Welcome to Wisdom to Wealth. I'm Regina Davis, your host, and
I'm Doug Sims.
And today our guest actually is Marcus LaGrone. Marcus LaGrone is a broker, real estate broker in the Atlanta area. He's been in business for over 20 years. We just wanted Marcus to share his journey with us. So Marcus, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll pipe in with some of our questions that we have.
Cool. Don't be too hard on me. All right, I didn't do any studying. So, I've been in business 20 years. I got licensed in 2001. Immediately got into working a lot with investors and also first-time home buyers. That's when HUD homes were really big. So we used to do sales as far as HUD homes are concerned, sell those also to investors and first-time home buyers. Around 2004, started to get calls from my lender. Just so happens is the lender that I was using with Wells Fargo also had ties with their REO department, their foreclosure department. So people didn't know that the crash in 2007 and 2008 actually started in 04, 05. So he started reaching out to me and said, hey, we're getting quite a few foreclosures in. Do you want to be part of the REO department? Or do you want me to put your name in the hat for the foreclosures? So I said, sure. Didn't really know what it was going to turn into. But 2004, 2005, started working quite a few foreclosures. And then by 07, 08, when the market crashed, I was getting calls from just about every bank in the country. So everyone from Bank of America, Chase, Fannie, Freddie Mac, Deutsche Bank, which was an overseas bank at the time, a bunch of the management companies for other slightly smaller investors. But everyone needed experienced real estate agents to handle their foreclosures. So 2007, 2008 through about 2012, I was working foreclosures quite a bit. But I've always been an agent that was putting the sign out front, going and doing my own work, going and doing BPOs. If you guys are familiar with BPOs, those are broker price opinions. So I would go out and do all those myself. Didn't really know how to run the business at all. So I was in hustle mode, big time. GMAC gave me a contract to do BPOs. I was doing almost 1,500 BPOs a month for them, which is literally just going out and evaluating properties. And it was me, and then I finally decided to hire one more person to help. What I should have did at that time, though, was really outsourced most of it. Took a small percentage, and I could have made an absolute killing and probably even crossed over state lines. But anyway, so worked the foreclosure market until 2012. And then early 2013, things started to change. And people don't really realize what happened with the real estate market or with those foreclosures. I don't know if you guys remember that whole saying, the shadow inventory that was coming, or the second wave of foreclosures that was supposed to come that never really hit. What people don't understand is that all of these banks, along with the government, they pooled all these what are called non-performing assets. So these are all the people that were in the process of foreclosing or getting to where they were pretty far behind in their loan. They pooled all of these, and the FDIC sold them off to large corporate investors. And then anything that was remaining went to the court steps. And then you get these companies, these hedge funds like Blackstone, for instance, that created Invitation Homes. And then you have Colony Homes and all these hedge funds that were going in and buying foreclosures on the court steps. And that's the reason why no one even saw that second wave. People think that buyers started buying real estate again and the market started to rebound. That's not the case. It was mostly investors buying at that time. So the inventory dried up pretty quick. So I had to make a decision on whether or not I was going to stay in the business, if I was going to get out, do some investing or do something else. I decided to stay in and started working a lot with international investors. So I had investors from China, UK, Canada, and a couple other small places, worked with them for several years. That's where the international came from. Prior to the international being there, was LaGrone Enterprises. So I really wanted to brand as more of an internationally friendly investment company. And we did pretty well. We had investors coming in and were buying bulk portfolios of 20, 30, 50 houses at a time. So it worked out incredibly well. And then I would go and manage those properties for them as well, because all of them were coming in and turning them into rentals. So it worked out incredibly well. Then all of that started to dry up around 2017. And that's when I got back into traditional real estate, started working once again, putting signs out front, working with buyers, everything else. But this time I wanted to make things a little bit different. So I decided to start building out a company and a brand. And what I wanted to do though is do things that were a lot different than other companies. For those that are really familiar with the real estate industry, 87% of real estate agents fail. So that's almost 9 out of 10. And the reason being is, and there's a few different reasons. Number one is you have people that are normally looking at real estate as a second career or possibly even third career. So their main focus or their main thing over the last several years has been, I'm an employee, and they have an employee mindset. And real estate is a business. The second you get your license and you hang it with a brokerage, you just opened a business, just like McDonald's just opened up a restaurant around the corner, which means that you have to deal with marketing. You have to deal with accounting. You have to deal with the discipline of no one telling you you have to get up at 7 o'clock in the morning, eat breakfast, be at work at 8, you get a break at 10:30, any of that. So when I decided to start bringing on agents, I wanted things to be a little bit different. So what I did is I started building out a lot of systems and protocols for those newer agents where we could bring them in, teach them how to run their business, also give them business, and then slowly walk them into being self-sufficient. So it's worked out pretty well. Right now, we've got 20 agents. We just hired a recruiter, so we're looking to expand quite a bit now. And it has taken literally 4 years, and COVID pushed things back a little bit as far as our, building out those systems, tweaking them, making sure things work correctly. So it's taken about 4 years now to get things where we want it to be. But either way, we've got 20 agents now, doing incredibly well. We'll close 160, 170 transactions this year. So we did pretty well. And we're looking to expand quite a bit now over the coming years. So that's where we're at.
Wow, congratulations.
Thank you.
Doug, do you want to take the first question?
Yeah, so from being a real estate agent to broker, what's that process? Do you have to be a real estate agent for so many years, or do you just have to apply yourself and take the test maybe after 2 years to become a broker? What's that process like?
That is state by state, but in Georgia, you have to be licensed as an agent and practicing for 3 years. And then you have to take the broker's exam, pass that. And then from there, you are considered an associate broker until you open your own brokerage. So you still, if you do not open your own brokerage, you still have to hang your license with another broker.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now that is different though in different states. And I want to say, don't get me wrong, but I think New York and a couple other places, I believe you can start as a broker from day one. I can't remember if it's in New York or what, but there are some states where you can start as a broker owning your own company from day one.
Okay. So you did mention that most people start real estate as a second career or what have you. Is there particular questions that people may ask you regarding how to get into real estate? What's the investment? What's the time commitment? Things of that. Because I know most people are still probably working a job trying to transition.
Yeah, I think that's one of the big problems is that people don't ask enough questions. People see TV, they see the agents on TV that look like they're doing incredibly well. They think that they're going to get a license, come out and start making $1 million a year. Mm-hmm. And because of that, they don't ask many questions. The questions that they should be asking really are, okay, how do I make this transition? If they are working and they're looking to go full-time in real estate, what does that transition look like? How long will it be before my income stabilizes? What do I need to do to stabilize that income? What does the business as a whole entail? Normally when you open a business, you do things like a SWOT analysis, your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You figure out your mission statement, your vision statement, things like that. You plan and you budget for your expenses. Most agents don't do any of that. And I would say 99% don't. So those are the questions they really need to be asking is, how do I do that to where when I go and get into this industry, I'm not part of that 87%.
Okay. Well, from that, it sounds like you're really well versed in your education as far as the real estate is concerned and the training. Now, do you think that maybe a program needs to be put in place for other agents around the country regarding that particular type of training? Because, I have friends that get into real estate, but I never hear anything about the particular training to get them to the next level.
It's not something really that I don't think would ever be regulated. I don't think so. And it is, for years, the industry has toyed with making it a 4-year degree for years. I don't think it'll ever happen. NAR would lose way too much money if you turn it into a 4-year degree. But it really does need to be some type of centralized training or some type of mandatory training for individuals to show them exactly what this business entails. I really believe so. But then you have to look at it and say, okay, who writes it? Because every brokerage that you see out here just about is independently owned, or every small brokerage rather is independently owned. The larger brokerages even still are franchises a lot of times. And you do have, your Remaxes and your Coldwell Bankers and things like that are under large umbrellas sometimes. But most of the brokerages you see are either franchised or are independently owned. So it's hard to mandate something like that after someone gets a license. It would be a lot easier to mandate it before they get licensed. But now you're cutting down on huge types of revenue streams as far as the NAR is concerned. And I don't want to go too deep as far as that. But I don't think that will happen anytime soon, even though it needs to. But really, brokerages are focused on bringing agents in, having a very blanketed approach as far as training is concerned, and then sink or swim. So brokerages set you up like this. Do you guys fish at all? Does anybody fish?
Used to.
Used to fish. All right, Marcus, all right, you fish. All right, cool. First time you went fishing. Say it again.
I sort of fish.
Sort of fish. Sort of fish is perfect because you'll understand this then. So you go to Walmart, and on the Walmart, in the tackle aisle, there's all this tackle out there. There's how to catch shark. You can catch bass, trout. You can catch anything you want to from that wall. Thing is that, and that's how the real estate industry is set up. There's so many different trainings and so many different ways to make money in the industry. But if someone doesn't tell you, hey, you use this lure right here, this is how you string it, this is how you throw it out. You know what? Every once in a while, you need to jerk your line. All right, bring it back in. Let's try it again. Understand that you're not going to catch one the first time, but this is a process. If you have people that walk you through that from start to finish and give you proper expectations and give you which lure to use, then you would be incredibly successful. But most real estate agents walk in, they look at that tackle wall and they start grabbing stuff off of there, the shiniest thing normally. And usually it's the most expensive thing because people think the most expensive is what's going to work. And then they throw it out there and they realize this didn't work and they think that it's the lure. So they go grab something else and then it's something else. But if there was directions and there was mentorship and everything, and people could really be walked through that process, you would cut it down to just a couple of pieces or a couple of different ways of building your business, and then focus on that and understand it takes consistency. It's not just to throw it in the water and snatch something out type of business. So.
Wow. So Marcus, tell us a little decided that this is what you wanted to do, and what sorts of skill sets do you think that you possessed prior to this industry that helped you in the industry?
All right, the reason I got in is that a girlfriend and I had got into an investment property and lost our ass in it. So I wanted to know why. Prior to that, I mean, I don't have any college education. I've got a semester of college education, and wasn't really going much then, but you can call it a semester. Moved to Atlanta when I was 19 years old to get away from Detroit so I wouldn't get in trouble. And just kind of built up from there, worked odd and end jobs, things like that. Before I got into real estate, I was a collection manager at a law firm and kind of worked my way up from there. They had some hiring that they were doing. So started out in collections, then got promoted. So I ended up being a collection manager. So I was doing pretty well then. Even then in my mid 20s, I was a hustler regardless. So I was making close to six figures even then. But I didn't really have any skills to get into real estate at all. It was just, all right, I lost money on this deal. Real estate course should show me why, because I wanted to be an investor, or I think I want to be an investor. So went and took the course, and then things just took an entirely different path. I got licensed. Before I knew it, I was with a company called Metro Brokers. It was a GMAC real estate at that time. So pretty large company. They had 2,500 agents. So I was just one of those 2,500 when I walked in the door. And from there, it was literally sink or swim. They gave you some immediate training to cover your CE classes, your continuing education for the first year. And after that, I was put in office with 60 or 70 other agents. There were some agents that reached out and that were very helpful. Shout out to the Stone Mountain office. It's no longer there, but really cool group of people. But the majority of people weren't doing well. And the majority of people weren't really in a position to help me. Everyone was kind of in the same thing, just kind of clawing and scratching and doing a deal and trying to figure things out. There was no real mentorship there. So yeah, I really don't think I had any real skills coming in, except for I was a hustler and I didn't mind picking up the phone and talking to people.
Those are skills for certain. Actually, as an entrepreneur, I mean, that really resonates, because you really do have to go at it every day. There's a lot of things, that we don't talk about being an entrepreneur, like some of the things, we don't have certain things, or when things don't work out, this is what you want to do. I think you remember I had sent something like real estate was one of my first things, I wanted to do real estate. So I, took the classes. It was like 40 hours of training. You take the test, and I passed the test, and I was hired someplace here in Michigan, Westdale at the time. And it was like a couple of different interviews. So I thought, oh, okay, I have someplace to go. But then when they said I wouldn't have a check for about 90 days or so, I was happy that I didn't quit my day job. And so that really is real. And so one of the reasons why we're doing, establishing this platform is to talk about some of those things, but also, to introduce people to the various industries that they may be interested in. So I guess that the other, question is, what sorts of things, or what sorts of nuggets, I guess, maybe that you can give some of the entrepreneurs out there who are interested in not just real estate, but in any endeavor. What advice would you give them, or some sort of nugget, I suppose, of wisdom?
I guess I can start with the real estate, because this is what I've done for, I guess, a long time, I could say. But people are very scared to know the truth, I think. When you have a dream, a lot of times, you don't want people to tell you, you're tripping right now. Or, this isn't a good time. Or, you need to plan better. I think people need to start asking those questions. So not just with real estate, but with any business. You can't just jump into a business because you got an attitude because COVID and things are shut down, or your employers have shut down, and now you want to go solo and do your own thing, and you have no plan. What's going to happen is that you're going to take the next year to 2 years, struggle very, very hard, and put yourself in a hole that's going to be even harder to get out of, as opposed to taking this next 6 months to plan it accordingly, make sure you have everything in order, and then jump ship the right way. And now you've cut your time quite a bit. And I don't want to be insensitive, because there's a lot of people that lost jobs due to COVID. There's a lot of people that chose other career paths due to COVID. But what we're seeing right now is something that I think is going to reverse very quickly. And we're seeing individuals that are literally saying, I'm done, because they're emotional about what's going on right now with this pandemic, and they don't want to deal with their employers anymore. They're hearing that, other people are walking away from jobs and not coming back. You see all these for hire signs everywhere, and nobody wants to go get a job because they think they're going to do their own thing. There's going to be a rude awakening out there. Rude awakening. And people better be very careful, because when companies find a way to do work without you, that's when you're really in trouble. And what they're doing is they're forcing companies right now to find a way to work without them. So when it comes time for people to actually need jobs that didn't go into this entrepreneur thing the correct way, it's going to be rough. Be very rough. And especially for us, it's going to be incredibly rough. So my big thing would be to plan. Really sit down. If you don't know how to write a business plan, it's time to learn. And best part about the internet is you can find anything you want. Anything. It doesn't matter what you want to be. If you want to be the president, I'm sure you could Google how to become the president of the United States, and they will walk you through it. Doesn't mean you'll make it, but I bet you'll be a lot closer than you are right now.
Right.
Same thing. If you are looking to build a business plan, guess what? Get online, YouTube. How do I build a business plan? Start researching, figure out what you need to do to plan this the right way. And you're going to cut years off of that curve, as opposed to just jumping in because you had a dream one night. And then you're realizing that, this isn't as easy as they make it look on Instagram.
True.
So speaking of Instagram and those places, I actually reached out, and I'd say more than one person has asked the question, as an entrepreneur, what criteria, I guess, that they would need or requirements in order to purchase a home. So what would get someone qualified, an entrepreneur specifically?
An entrepreneur. And it is different from a W-2 employee, absolutely. So entrepreneurs, you need to have 2 years of income. So in other words, the lender is going to look at 2 years of your tax records, and they're going to average those 2 years. So if you make $100,000 a year, but you write off everything to where you're only making $10,000, and you did that for 2 years, your average income is going to be $10,000, which means you're not going to be able to purchase much. And I think this is a great question, because this is something that we deal with a lot. Once again, going back to that planning thing, when you own your own business, you have to plan a lot further out than someone that is an employee. W-2s are really easy to show. Last year tax returns are really easy to show. And if someone else is paying your bills, it's easier to get a loan. And what I mean by that is, if you are working for someone else, they're looking at, okay, this must be a fairly stable company because they're cutting you a check every month. So you don't have to have 2 years. You don't have to show that you've been working with them for 2 years. But being an entrepreneur, it's one of two things. It's either 2 years of average income, or they're going to take your last 12 months and they're going to cut it in half. Because once again, they're going to average it over a 2-year cycle. So make sure you're planning accordingly. That is the biggest hiccup that we find. More than anything else is just that cycle. The plan is a lot longer. We don't want to pay taxes as entrepreneurs, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. So the way you get around that is the years that you want to buy something, and you figure it out, you plan a couple years out. Those are the years that you need to plan for a higher tax bill. The years that you are not going to buy anything, and once again, you got to plan it. But the years you're not going to buy anything, cut it back. And it's really that simple if you do it that way. If you plan it out like that, now okay, next year or next 2 years, I'm going to buy a new house, and I'm going to need $100,000 in income to do so. I know my tax burden is going to be X. Let me talk to my financial advisor to make sure that I'm doing this the right way. Is there any other way I can move some money around? But I know my tax burden is going to be this. So let me start taking out more now.
Right.
And now you don't have this huge hit, at the end of the year to where you're responsible for $30,000 in taxes because you didn't plan for it, but you decided that you want to buy a house next April or May.
Right.
So you do have to plan a lot more as an entrepreneur. Everything else is pretty much the same.
So what type of credit score? I'm sorry.
Yep. Really 620 or higher will get you, actually a 600 will get you in.
Okay.
And we have lenders that go lower than that. But when you start getting below that 6 to 620 mark, now you're dealing with lenders that are going to be very, very picky. So they're going through bank statements line by line. If you've got a hiccup or you got a bounce check, they're going to be on you. They're making sure that all your income, self-employed or W-2, is completely sourced. Any money that you have in the bank, they're matching it up to make sure that, all right, this $50,000, where did it come from? They're going to pick a lot more once you get below that 620 mark.
Great information. Yep.
Yeah, definitely great. I'm going to go back to your company. For your staff and what have you, how do you go about actually choosing your team that works with you?
It's the hardest thing in the world. I still have not figured out how to do it. I really haven't. And I'm starting to realize, and I don't know if you guys watch Gary Vaynerchuk at all.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I heard something from him and it actually changed how I looked at things. And he said, hire fast and fire faster. So what you want to do is, for instance, let's start with the agents, because the agents are independent contractors. All right, so they're not W-2, they're on their own. They're independent contractors, but even still, we give them, or a lot of our agents, company business. Not all of them, but a lot of them. And then from that, we take a certain split because we're helping them gain business, we're giving them training, what have you. So we have a certain profile of an agent that we look for. And it is agents that have been in the business more than usually a year, that have done up to about 6 or 7 transactions in the last 12 months, that are full-time and that have that grit. We are really starting to hone in on that. What we were doing at the beginning is bringing any agent that would say, yes, I want to work with you, because we were happy that someone would come work with us. We didn't really know what our value was. Then we started to realize that this is not a good fit. This agent is on board, but they're 60 days from going to get a job. All right, I can't do nothing for you in 60 days. This is still real estate. Now I can train you and give you business, and 90 to 120 days from there, you're killing it. And you should make over 6 figures this year if you do what we ask you to do. But, I can't bring on agents that don't want to get on the phone. I can't bring on agents that, honestly, that have done 20, 30, 40 transactions. That's not our niche. Our niche is the newer agents that have gotten their feet wet to where we don't have to teach them how to write a contract or how to show a house, but instead we teach them how to run a business. And they're receptive to it because they don't come with bad habits. They haven't been in the business too long, but they're not too early in the business where they don't know that real estate is hard as hell. So, and it's that sweet spot for us. Brand new agents, they always think something's better out there, no matter what it is, because they haven't hit their head yet. So you usually bring them on and they're going to hit their head with you. And then they're going to go explore. And then if your situation was better, then they're coming back 9 times out of 10. But you got to go through that. The older agents have done it all, have seen it all, and they have one way of doing business. If you have someone that's been in the business more than 5 years and closed more than 15, 20 transactions, there's no changing how they do business. There's just not. So I like that sweet spot to where they've come in, they bumped their head, they realize that, okay, this shit is hard. Now let me figure out where I can go to get exactly what I need to be successful. And those are those agents that have been in the business usually a year up to a maximum of about 3 years and have done minimal transactions.
So with the agents, you mentioned earlier about agents and discipline, and 9 out of 10 people may not make it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, do you find that the older agents that's been in real estate for 5+ years, that they really have set disciplines about themselves to go out and get it?
No, not at all. The average real estate agent makes $48,000 a year in income. And if you look at now, it might be a little bit higher because home prices are going up a little bit more. But if you look at make it, we're talking about the people that actually keep a license past 5 years. 9 out of 10 fail. 1 out of 10 keeps a license past 5 years, and the average income is right around $48,000, $50,000 a year. So that tells you the large majority of this industry is bad habits. I don't want to say lack of education, but I have to say lack of education. And it's not just knowing the transaction. There are some agents that are very good with the transaction. There are some agents, though, that are very poor with running a business. And perfect example is some of the agents we bring in, you give them a transaction. If you put them in front of someone, they're going to kill it. But they don't know how to get business. They don't know how to put themselves out there. They don't understand that internet leads, you're going to close 1% to 2%, which means that in order for you to just close 2 transactions, you have to come in contact with 100 people every month. People don't look at this. But the habits are not good habits across the board. But if you look at real estate isn't too much different than any other entrepreneurial field. Most businesses fail. Most do. Yeah.
So how do your agents go about marketing? Do they only use like Facebook or Instagram, or are they out there doing billboards or direct contact or what have you?
So our model is set up a little bit different, and that's what we were talking about before. And that's the reason why I wanted to set it up different, because our agents, if they don't want to, they're not responsible for doing any marketing themselves. If they don't want to. Now, we do have agents that do put themselves out there. Right now, social media is huge. Everybody knows that. But you have to do social the right way. As a company, we can be what's called a billboard because we have a budget to be able to do that. And that doesn't mean putting billboards up on the side of the road. That means paying for individuals to see our brand, and then those individuals interact with that ad, and we capture their information. That's what we consider a billboard. But there's quite a few different ways of gathering business in the real estate industry. So for instance, you have hunters. Those are the individuals that will pick up the phone and cold call or door knock. You have your hyper-localist. Those are individuals that will attach to their community and are very much involved with the schools or with marketing to a neighborhood. You have your networkers, people, of course, that, go to events and constantly meet people. You have all these different segments, all these different ways of getting business. So there's really no one way to go. What we try to do is we try to figure out, based on personality type, what's going to be best for our agents and walk them that way. So we do a lot of coaching. Like I do coaching calls on Monday, and just about my entire Monday is set up for nothing but coaching with agents. And then I also have a coach that I talk to as well. But that's my Monday. And we plan and we strategize, and it's a lot based on their personality type. You have some agents that will not get on Instagram or social media to save their life. It's just not them to put themselves out there. But they're heavy in the church community, and they do great things in their community, so everybody loves them. And they build a business around their community. And their community supports them because they support their community. So there's a lot of different ways to build a brand. It really is based on personality type, what works for you. You don't have to be this hardcore salesperson to do well. You just have to really figure out what's going to work and then be consistent with it.
Gotcha.
That's great. Great information.
Definitely great information. So I guess my last question would be regarding the brokerage part of it. So do you consult other agencies Is that what you do as a broker, or is it just the agents themselves?
Just the agents themselves. So the agents that come into my brokerage, I coach them. I do also have a couple of agents that I deal with in groups. I am in a ton of Facebook groups, a ton. Everything from an independent brokers network to Black realtors to, I've got probably 10 different groups that I'm in. So I'll get Facebook messages and I'll respond. And the cool part is I can do the same thing. In your business, when you're the head, most of the time, there's not a whole lot of people you can bounce ideas off of. So it's really good to be able to branch out, find those networks of individuals, and Facebook is really good for that. So I shoot out messages and get responses. I've got a brokerage in Minnesota, 2 great guys. They got 650 agents. And I can, pick up the phone, text them if I've got a question, and one of them will hit me back in 10, 20 minutes. So it's great to have that. But also, I have to be responsible too and know that there's a lot of agents out there that need the information that I have. So I try to make myself as accessible as possible in these groups to where when they have messages or they, have questions, they can always shoot them out to me. But the large majority of my coaching is in my brokerage.
Great.
Yeah. So I have just a couple of more things. One, thank you so very, very much for taking the time today you walked us through so many things, not only just within your industry, but things that people are able to capture and take away just in terms of a business plan, how to market, the things that are very important. And then the second thing actually is that hopefully you'll come back.
Sure.
Hopefully we can get some more. I think as a result of people maybe watching, they may have some additional questions. So we'll set up some sort of Q&A where you'll be able to come back and maybe answer some of those questions.
Sure. This was fun.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you so very much. Entrepreneurship, wisdom to wealth. Thanks.